After spending millennia orbiting Mars, a massive asteroid named Pi is heading toward Earth and is expected to collide in 8 years, threatening to wipe out humanity. As panic spreads across the globe, the UN convenes to address the crisis and authorizes China to lead the Project United Nations Moon Shield, UNMS. The plan involves building a massive base on the moon, constructing a super-nuclear weapon called the Cosmic Striking Hammers, using it to destroy Pi, and leveraging the moon's orbit to shield Earth from the resulting debris. Yue applies to join the Moon Project, but during his interview, he describes himself as average and a middleman, which doesn't impress the interviewer. Instead of an engineering position, he's offered a maintenance role. Determined to go, Yue accepts the offer. Soon, he's on his way to the moon with a team of astronauts. Over the next 8 years, the crew works tirelessly and eventually launches the superweapon, celebrating their achievement. However, Yue's focus is more on Langsing, the base commander, on whom he has a crush. In his free time, he rehearses ways to confess his feelings to her and waits by her door whenever she returns, but Langsing doesn't even notice him. One day, Yue is in his room, listening to music and trying to write a heartfelt confession letter. At the same time, Langsing gets alarming news. A solar storm has knocked one of the missiles off course, and some asteroid debris has escaped the moon's orbit. These fragments are set to hit the base in just 27 minutes. Langsing quickly raises the alarm and orders everyone to evacuate. Unfortunately, Yue, with his headphones on, misses all the announcements and stays in his room. As the astronauts scramble into the evacuation rockets and leave the moon, Yue finally notices the situation when he looks out the window. Panicked, he jumps into a car and races toward the last rocket. He tries using the radio to communicate, but the approaching debris interferes with the signal. Spotting a crater ahead, Yue tries to jump over it instead of going around, but ends up falling into it. Meanwhile, Langsing launches the final rocket, leaving Yue stranded on the moon. Yue climbs out of the crater just as the asteroid debris begins slamming into the moon. He dodges falling rocks and races back to the base, only to find it crumbling around him. As pieces of the building collapse, Yue is knocked down but manages to make a desperate leap into a crater for cover, only to get knocked out again. While he's unconscious, a massive asteroid fragment hurtles toward Earth. When Yue regains consciousness, he complains and tries to contact UNMS. Just then, the asteroid fragment slams into Earth, triggering a catastrophic explosion that destroys a large part of the planet. Yue stares in shock and despair, realizing that their 8 years of effort were all in vain. He returns to the base and keeps trying to contact Earth, but there's no response. For 6 days, he continues calling out, only to realize he might be the last human alive. This realization takes a heavy toll on his mental health. Struggling with the weight of loneliness, Yue decorates a room with paper for a pseudo-funeral to honor humanity. The base has enough food to sustain 300 people, so Yue knows he won't run out of supplies for the rest of his life. Determined to make the most of his time, he decides to do all the things he's always wanted to do. First, he tries to enter Langsing's room but fails to guess her password. Frustrated, he grabs a board and starts sliding around on the moon for fun. Days pass as he continues obsessively trying passwords, driving himself to the brink of madness. Finally, Yue gives up and resorts to using explosives to blast the door open. The explosion also shreds his clothes. With access to her room, Yue creates a life-sized figure of her, sets up a romantic dinner, and plays music to stage a confession. Lost in the moment, he starts kissing the figure, completely unaware that he's being watched. Back on Earth, there are survivors, both civilians in underground bunkers and astronauts in the UNMS underground base. They've managed to reconnect to the lunar base cameras, but because the radio isn't working, they can only see Yue without hearing him. Earth's condition is dire. The asteroid impact fractured the planet's plates, triggering massive tsunamis that submerged 30% of the land. Cities are buried under volcanic ash and toxic gases, and plants and animals are on the brink of extinction. In the bunkers, people struggle to keep plants alive in jars without sunlight. Diseases and depression are widespread, and people are barely surviving on the most basic meals. Many have even started losing their hair due to malnutrition and stress. The UNMS chairman sees an opportunity to give people hope by live streaming Yue's life on the moon. They decide to hire a voice actor to dub Yue's actions, portraying him as a hero to inspire the survivors. Langsing makes an announcement, revealing to everyone that they've found a man alive on the moon and that the stream will start in 30 days. While some people are skeptical and vanish mysteriously, the plan moves forward. Meanwhile, Yue is sinking deeper into depression and decides to end his life. He heads to the warehouse to find medicine for the act, but on the way, he notices an open food package in the corridor that he didn't leave there. Confused, he opens the warehouse door and is stunned to see a beautiful figure lying on the floor. Believing it to be a woman, he starts flirting as he approaches, only to discover it's actually a kangaroo left behind by the research division. At the same time, Langsing starts the live stream, and the first thing everyone on Earth sees is King Kong Roo on the screen. The voice actor hired to dub Yue's voice blurts out, "What a fantastic day," which makes it look like the kangaroo is talking. nothing. Realizing his mistake, the actor tries to apologize by playing his flute, but this only gets him smacked around. Luckily, the survivors assume the audio is just delayed and don't think the kangaroo is actually speaking. Langsing decides to shift gears, having the actor narrate the events instead of pretending to be Yue's voice. On the moon, Yue reads the research notes about Kong and learns that the kangaroo is aggressive and has a big appetite, explaining why he's been raiding the pantry. Armed with a shovel, Yue heads back to the warehouse to retrieve the medicine. However, Kong sneaks up behind him. Yue swings the shovel, but it snaps in half. Kong grabs the handle, bends it effortlessly, and then beats Yue up. Desperate, Yue dresses up as a female kangaroo to distract Kong. While trying to sneak toward the medicine, Kong tackles him and attempts something inappropriate. The disguise falls apart, and Yue is kicked out of the warehouse. Shortly after, Kong starts roaming into other parts of the base. Determined to stop him, Yue uses a 3D printer to create a Gatling gun that fires plastic balls. He starts chasing Kong around the base, spraying him with plastic bullets. However, Kong turns the tables and starts chasing Yue instead. The voice actor plays his flute dramatically to make the scene more intense as Yue and Kong engage in a chaotic hand-to-paw fight. After a grueling struggle, both collapse at the same time. The UNMS, watching everything, grows concerned and tries to contact Yue. When Yue wakes up, he hears static on the radio. Though there are no clear words, he begins to cry, taking the static as a sign that survivors on Earth are trying to reach him. Neither Yue nor the UNMS realizes that the static was caused by Kong's tail interfering with the cables. Yue and Kong sit together, staring at Earth, and come to a truce, although Kong still punches him afterward. Over 200 days pass, and Yue never stops broadcasting messages to Earth. In the meantime, he and Kong settle into a routine, and Yue even announces they've become a family. Realizing that Earth won't rescue him anytime soon, Yue decides to repair the spacecraft left behind by the old Apollo 18 mission. While the UNMS debates how they can use this development to assist him, Yue and Kong drive out in the lunar car and locate the Apollo. Yue runs tests and confirms that the spacecraft can still work after some modifications. He brings the Apollo back to the base, and the people on Earth watch as he works tirelessly on repairing it over several days. The UNMS team is surprised by Yue's skills and checks his records, discovering that he's actually an engineer who somehow ended up in maintenance. As Yue continues working on the Apollo, he realizes a heartbreaking truth. The spacecraft can only carry 22 pounds, but Kong alone weighs far more than that. Feeling like there's no other option, Yue takes Kong for a ride and abandons him in the middle of the moon. However, Kong quickly chases after him and manages to jump back onto the car. Frustrated but resigned, Yue starts researching a more powerful propulsion system and learns that the prototype for the superweapon is still stored at an older base on the moon. Yue and Kong load up on supplies and begin the journey, traveling only during the day since the vehicle relies on solar power. The old base is located on the other side of the moon, and the journey will take weeks. People on Earth worry Yue might not make it because the sun only shines on the moon for 14 days in each lunar cycle. Soon, the UNMS realizes that Yue has been driving in the opposite direction to stay in constant sunlight. Although this route will take longer, it ensures he won't get stranded in the dark. Now, Yue has 41 days to reach the old base and can only afford to sleep about 4 hours each day. At first, Yue and Kong keep each other entertained, but as the journey stretches on, exhaustion and isolation start to affect their mental health. One day, Yue dreams of Kong driving the car and talking to him, only to wake up and find they've crashed into a crate. Despite the challenges, they finally reach the old base. Yue locates the warhead and carefully removes it. Suddenly, Kong starts pressing buttons repeatedly, and Yue panics, thinking Kong might activate the weapon. Thankfully, it's just the inspection program. Frustrated, Yue locks Kong in the trunk to prevent further trouble. As they start the return trip, Yue plays music to distract himself, but it drowns out the sound of the trunk detaching from the car. Hundreds of miles later, Yue realizes Kong is missing. At first, he continues driving, knowing that going back would mean losing precious sunlight. However, guilt gets the better of him, and he turns around to rescue Kong. Earth's survivors celebrate this moment, and a grateful Kong licks Yue as thanks. Meanwhile, at the UNMS, Langsing orders the team to locate an old lunar dog left behind during a previous mission, hoping the dog might help Yue. Back on the moon, Yue and Kong continue driving non-stop, knowing they can't afford to rest or they'll fall behind the sunlight. After staying awake for over 50 hours, they notice the sunlight starting to slip away. Desperate, they push the car to its limits, speeding up to stay in the light. As the temperature begins to drop, Yue turns on the car's heater to avoid freezing, but this drains the battery even faster. With just 35 miles left to the base, the car's battery dies, leaving them stranded. Exhausted and defeated, Yue steps out of the vehicle and prepares to face the inevitable. At the same time, the UNMS team finally manages to activate the lunar dog, but it's still far from Yue's location. They attempt to guide the dog over a crater as a shortcut, but the dog falls and breaks. Back on the moon, Yue sits in the freezing cold, staring at a picture of Langsing on a mirror as his thoughts linger on her. Kong begins chasing the light reflected from Yue's mirror like a playful cat, sparking an idea. Yue rips off the car door and uses his tools to fashion it into a sled. He attaches the sled to Kong and flashes the light ahead, prompting Kong to chase it and pull the sled across the moon's surface. Eventually, they encounter a massive chasm. Yue cleverly activates gas tanks at just the right moment, giving them the propulsion needed to leap across. They land safely on the other side, and everyone on Earth celebrates the daring move with renewed hope. A special award is even prepared for Yue for when he returns, and images of Yue and Kong become symbols of resilience, decorating the underground bunkers. Inspired by Yue's efforts, humans on Earth work tirelessly to repair infrastructure. Thanks to their determination, the UNMS announces that they're just 3 months away from restoring communication with the lunar base. Meanwhile, 516 days have passed since the asteroid incident, and Yue continues to work on connecting the Apollo's outdated technology. Progress is slow, but one afternoon, Yue is thrilled to hear static on the radio again. However, when he turns around, he catches Kong fiddling with the cables. Suspicious, Yue tests the connection himself and confirms the static wasn't from Earth. It was Kong's doing all along. Devastated, Yue's spirit breaks as he realizes his hard work and suffering have been in vain because he still believes he's the only human left. Overcome with frustration, he yells at Kong before succumbing to depression again. Back on Earth, the UNMS still needs a month to complete the communication system. Refusing to give up, Langsing uses the speaker system to address the survivors. She admits that Yue isn't some legendary hero, but an ordinary man they accidentally left behind. Yet, despite this, Yue has spent over a year trying to become a hero, and Langsing insists he deserves their support. She encourages everyone to turn on their flashlights and shine them toward the moon to show Yue that he isn't alone. At that very moment, Yue is outside and, overwhelmed by despair, removes his helmet. As his oxygen starts running out, the flashlights on Earth begin to illuminate the moon's surface. Lighthouses and countless beams of light shine upward, uniting humanity in a powerful display of hope. Stunned, Yue collapses to his knees in tears, realizing that he's not alone after all. Finally, on day 613, the UNMS restores communication, and Yue sees another human face for the first time in over a year. The initial celebration is emotional, and from then on, Yue spends his days talking to the UNMS team. They even find the Apollo blueprints and guide him on how to integrate the outdated technology with newer systems. Yue also gets to see Langsing every day, and he begins to feel like they're becoming friends. One evening, after finishing the repairs, Yue confesses something to Langsing. He tells her that he initially turned down the maintenance role and walked out of the interview. However, when he saw her smile in the hallway, he decided to change his mind and accept the position. Moved by his words, Langsing shares a confession of her own. When she was evacuating, she did see Yue in the crater, but she chose to leave him behind because rescuing him would have doomed everyone else. She admits she'd make the same choice again if faced with it. Meanwhile, something mysterious is approaching Earth from space. The next day, Yue and Kong board the Apollo and finally leave the moon. There's some turbulence at first, but soon they reach orbit, and everyone on Earth celebrates. Within a few hours, the Apollo safely arrives at the lunar station, and Yue and Kong begin searching for escape pods. Meanwhile, back on Earth, devastating news arrives. A massive fragment of the asteroid, dubbed Pi Plus, has been dislodged by the debris orbiting the moon and is now heading toward Earth. This new threat is large enough to wipe out the remaining survivors. The team realizes that Yue is their only hope. He would need to pilot the warhead directly into Pi Plus, but the mission comes with an extremely high chance of death. Langsing volunteers to break the news and speak with Yue, live streaming the conversation to Earth. However, Yue has already overheard everything because someone left a mic on. To everyone's surprise, Yue is ready to take on the mission. He's determined to protect humanity, and more importantly, Langsing. As survivors are ordered to retreat to their bunkers, Yue tearfully says goodbye to Kong, placing him in an escape pod and sending him back to Earth. With Kong on his way, Yue boards the Apollo once again and heads for the asteroid. On his way, he encounters a field of meteorites. Yue focuses on piloting, skillfully dodging the debris, but the Apollo gets hit, breaking one of its thrusters and sending the ship into a dangerous spin. Panicked, Yue doesn't know what to do until Langsing suggests a plan. He needs to open the ship's hatch to use depressurization to counter the spinning momentum. Unfortunately, the hatch is stuck, so Yue kicks it repeatedly until it finally gives way. The maneuver works, stabilizing the Apollo, but he soon realizes the ship's engine has detached and is now floating away. With no power left in the Apollo, Yue has no choice but to move the warhead manually. Before exiting the ship, Yue speaks to Langsing one last time. He assures her he doesn't blame her for leaving him behind during the evacuation and asks her to live stream his final moments. Yue then exits the Apollo, guiding the warhead with his jetpack toward Pi Plus. As he approaches the asteroid, Yue delivers a heartfelt goodbye speech to humanity, moving everyone on Earth to tears. While Kong's escape pod safely lands in the ocean, Yue sings during his final moments. The pressure from the the asteroid begins crushing his suit, but he refuses to give up. Once he's close enough, Yue asks a sobbing Langsing to activate the warhead. She complies, and the resulting explosion destroys Pi Plus, saving Earth. The survivors emerge from their bunkers to witness a breathtaking meteorite shower, signifying their safety and Yue's sacrifice. Over a decade passes, and humanity works hard to rebuild Earth. Though there's still much left to do, people can now enjoy fresh air and life outside again. The former UNMS chairman has retired, and Kong has become a symbol of hope, honored with a statue and living peacefully in a reserve with other kangaroos. Meanwhile, Langsing, now leading a new team of astronauts, returns to the moon to clean up the remnants of the old base. Standing there, she imagines Yue by her side as they look out at the remains of Pi Plus, now forming a beautiful planetary ring around Earth. Don't forget to subscribe. Here's some more interesting story you don't want to miss.